Hey everyone, Andre here with something a little bit different because this might be the first video ever that really has nothing specifically to do with video games at all. And that's because I just got back from Disney World and Universal Studios a couple of weeks ago when I went for Christmas and New Year's. And as you probably know from my Super Nintendo World videos, I'm a big theme park fan, and they had a lot of new stuff open at Disney World and Universal, including Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, and then over at Disney World we had Galaxy's Edge, and the new Rise of the Resistance, which just opened a month ago, and just opened, I believe today, at the day we're recording this, in Disneyland. So that's a hot new attraction, and I wanted to talk about all of this. The thing is, no one else here at Game Explain is really a huge theme park fan. It's certainly not big enough to go, like, within the opening weeks of a new attraction. So I was racking my brain, like, man, who can I talk about theme parks with, besides just talking to myself the entire time? And then I remembered, while I was at Disney World, I had the chance to meet up with one of our awesome fans who, while we were in Animal Kingdom together, actually brought me some really cool gifts that they made themselves. I posted a picture of them on the screen, including one of the seashells from Splatoon, a Mario coin, glow-in-the-dark handles for my Pro Controller. So I thought, why not try and get them on to discuss everything themselves with me? So, Ermis, welcome to our theme park discussion. How are you doing?
I'm good, Andre. Thank you very much for inviting me on. I'm super excited to discuss all things theme park with you.
It sounds like you are a pretty big theme park fan yourself, right? Because you had annual passes to Disney World, so you were able to just drop on in just casually during the day to meet up with me, right?
Yeah, right. That's pretty much how it is. We are lucky enough to live like 15 minutes away from both Disney and Universal, so my wife and I, whenever we get the opportunity one evening, we just head over to one of the parks and do a couple of attractions and then hang out a little bit and head home. So yeah, we're both big theme park fans and, love living, near the parks.
Man, I'm so jealous, because the closest I lived to Disneyland, or to any Disney park, was when I was living in San Francisco, and me and my friends actually grabbed annual passes. So we'd drive down there every couple of months and just go to Disneyland and have a great time, even though that's a long drive. For the park.
It's a long drive, but yeah. Disneyland is definitely worth it. I love Disneyland. It's great, and as you said, they just got Rise of the Resistance opening this morning, so I'm excited for everyone to experience that ride over on the other coast.
That's right. So this is actually a really timely discussion because even though, again, it's been open for about, I think, a month or so, give or take a couple of weeks at Disney World, this is brand new on the West Coast, like super brand new. So this is really timely, and hopefully that's good for SEO. We'll see if people are looking actively for impressions.
I know, right?
So real quick, before we get into it, I kind of touched on it a little bit. I just wanted you to tell me real quick a little bit about what it is that you do beyond being a theme park enthusiast. Because like I said, you gave me these awesome little trinkets here that seem super well produced. So what exactly is it that you do, and how did you get into that?
So my wife is an artist. She primarily sculpts and builds like 3D things, and it all kind of started from there. She's very talented, and we were looking for a way to be able to reproduce her sculptures to make them more affordable and to be able to allow everyone to get a piece of hers. So luckily, living in Orlando, we with the parks and everything, we have quite a big community of creators, and we got into molding and casting, and that's kind of where I learned my trade as it is now. So molding, making molds of her pieces, and then casting reproductions. And one day I was just like, you know what, I want to do something of my own as well. So I kind of threw in a bit of gaming stuff in there. So like you said, I do a couple of Nintendo related pieces, including like the Super Sea Snail, and I also love to do cool controllers. So that's where the glow-in-the-dark grips that I gifted you in Game Explain Blue came from. But yeah.
That's right. I appreciate that. Now, they're super cool looking, and I was shocked that you made these yourself, because they look super, they look like professional, or they look like official things. Like, oh man, you've made these? That's nuts. So, yeah, so thank you again for those gifts, and I guess with that, we'll go ahead and get into our discussion.
Sure.
So, real quick, There will be spoilers here, but we'll try and avoid any major ones until we give a warning during each segment. So when we're talking about a ride, we'll talk about in generic terms, and then we'll get into the spoiler discussion, and then we'll announce that, and I'll put a timestamp on the screen as to when you can skip to avoid the spoilers for that section. But yeah, because if you haven't ridden these rides, especially Rise of the Resistance and Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure over at Universal Studios, I highly recommend avoiding the spoilers so you can fully experience it yourself. But if you have experienced them, then I want to get into the nitty-gritty and we can discuss our in-depth thoughts on each one. And also, we'll probably touch on Super Nintendo World in some way at the end as to what lessons Universal can learn from all of this and how they may be implemented in Super Nintendo World, and we'll give our general expectations too. So that's how we're kind of tying in Nintendo here. So so it kind of fits on the channel. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's just talk about Galaxy's Edge first in general, because this is my first experience with it. It's been open at Disneyland for most of last year, whereas I think it's been open at Disney World for maybe 6 months or so. You know better than I do probably, but a few months at the least, right?
Yeah, it's been open a few months over here, but I think it opened was it May in Disneyland? I believe
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
And on both coasts, it opened only with Smugglers Run. That's a Millennium Falcon ride where you basically like pilot and you have a whole crew piloting the Millennium Falcon. And I don't want to get into specifics too much yet, but I do remember that there was huge news stories about Disney expecting massive crowds at Star Wars Land at both coasts, and they never materialized, because this ride wasn't the main attraction. The main attraction, of course, was Rise of the Resistance, which didn't open until months later. As I said, it just opened up in Disney World about a month ago, and just today in Disneyland. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to expect of Star Wars Land or of Galaxy's Edge, because of like the initial mixed impressions. But when I went, it was, of course, during a peak period, because Rise of the Resistance had just opened, and the crowds were kind of intense. And my first impression of this land, beyond how busy it was how big it was. Like, I'd seen maps, and I was trying to avoid too many spoilers. I didn't want to know the land super in depth, but I'd seen some models, I'd seen some maps, and I'd heard it was like the biggest, theme park land Disney had ever built, or biggest, like, single themed land, rather, in a park. So I knew it was gonna be big, but I was shocked at how big it is, like how big it seemed. Like, it felt like even once I entered the land from the Muppet Studios side, it felt like I was walking for like 10 minutes just to get to the attraction itself. So what's your overall impressions of Star Wars or of Galaxy's Edge in general?
It's huge. Don't get me wrong, it is absolutely huge. I was kind of going into it thinking, okay, it's going to be a little bit bigger than Pandora, but it feels like it's like almost triple the size of Pandora.
It does.
Over Animal Kingdom. It's huge. The first time we went, we avoided like the opening craze, and we ended up going one evening, like when we were under like a hurricane watch or something, so it was nice and empty.
Best time to go.
So yeah,
during deadly conditions.
So we ended up going there. It's a big land. You can get lost very easily first time there. We managed to get on Smugglers Run that night with a single rider, and it only took us like 15 minutes to get on. But the land itself it's impressive. I think it's probably the best expansion that they've done in Disney World for a long time. But yeah, other than that, I would say I'm very impressed with the land itself.
Yeah, I was too. I heard, there were some of the initial complaints that it didn't feel like I had like a lot of activity. That I heard some people describe it as like a movie set, and I have to say that wasn't quite my impression. Like, I can see maybe where some of the ideas are coming from, but I was overall like pretty impressed by Galaxy's Edge. And maybe it was because of how busy it was, so I didn't feel like it felt like a very lively area to me. But we also had like stormtroopers up on like the catwalks, like yelling down at people. And as you said, or as we're both saying, like this land feels huge. It's easy to get lost in. I still don't know my way around that thing. And I think part of the reason why it might feel so big is it does feel bigger than Pandora, and I mean it is, but it's not that much bigger in terms of acreage. I think part of the reason why it feels so much bigger is because whereas Pandora is like pretty much fully open once you get into it, like you can see most of the land once you enter it. Galaxy's Edge is very much built around like the idea of you being in a marketplace. You have like a lot of corridors. You really can't see too far into it at any given point, especially once you get to the marketplace. So it's kind of like a confusingly built land. I think that just lends to the just to how big and how active it feels.
No, definitely, for sure. I mean, even though I've been there probably 5 or 6 times now, I still don't know 100% my way around the land, and I think it's going to take a while. But as you said, there are, you know, smaller areas, and there's, I mean, I personally felt like there was always something going on in the land. You know, there's always, you know, characters roaming around, you know, plenty of shops to go into, and they have a really cool shop with a lot of, like, prop-style things. I don't know if you found that shop.
I don't know if I did. I don't think I did, actually.
Huh. Yeah, they have, like, a lot of cool prop things. One of the coolest things I saw was, if you've seen the movies, the latest ones, one of the rings, the resistance rings that kind of shuts open and closed. They have really cool things like that, which you don't normally see at the Disney parks. So, you know, that was awesome to have things that you don't normally see in the parks available to purchase, you know, prop-wise from the movies. But yeah, I mean, I really love the land. I think they did a great job with the land. Smugglers Run, on the other hand, I have a couple of different opinions on, but the land itself, I was very impressed.
I pretty much agree with that. Like, all the little shops were neat. Like, the shops felt really small. I kind of like that. Like, added to the immersion of the marketplace. Although it's not always for the better, such as with the cantina, which is remarkably hard to get into, because it's not that big, and there's like I think we booked reservations like super early in advance, and even then we were only able to get a reservation like 9:15 in the morning. So we're drinking at like 9 a.m. But luckily it was New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. So it kind of made sense. So we're just basically drinking the whole day. But I want to touch on this real quick. Have you done the cantina yourself?
No, we've not been in the cantina yet. I'm afraid not.
I love the cantina. Like, I heard some mixed impressions of it too. But I have to say, I love this thing. If only, it's largely because, I mean, for one, it's basically themed to the cantina from, you know, A New Hope, just with, you know, without the live band. Instead, they have Captain Rex from the original Star Tours ride as a DJ, and I'm a huge fan of the original Star Tours ride, so I instantly fell in love with this place because they brought back Paul Rubens, or Pee Wee Herman, as a voice for Captain Rex, just as he was in the original attraction, and it is amazing. He references, like, he says lines either directly from the original ride or reworks them in a way to make sense for the new DJ setting. And it's just hilarious. Like, it just takes me back to my childhood. And on top of it, he's a really good DJ. He's got some really good songs he puts out there. So it's just a really fun atmosphere. And I just had a blast in that. So I highly recommend checking out the cantina when you get a chance. So
I am looking for reservations as we speak.
Excellent. My friend even ended up buying. They have this Captain Rex model, basically. It's a $150 model, but it doubles as a remote control Bluetooth speaker. So you can drive it around, you can spin them around, and he can blast whatever music you want. And he also like you know, chirps out his little catchphrases from the actual attraction itself. So I'm a little bit jealous now. I'm like, man, I should have bought one myself. That looks freaking cool.
That is amazing.
It's super neat.
Yeah, we got carried away buying droids when we went there on Christmas Day when we rode Rise of the Resistance. We ended up with a BB-8 and R2-D2 and a droid from the latest movie, who I won't name in case people haven't seen it.
Good point.
So Captain Rex sounds amazing,
oh, yeah.
And I may need him now.
I think you do. So one other thing about the whole Galaxy's Edge is the whole thing is kind of themed to being like a spaceport, and I think perhaps one thing they could have done a little bit better is I feel like I wish there was some kind of like kinetic energy to having like better selling the idea that this is a spaceport where. I don't know how they could have done it, but I do wish like there was some kind of impression of seeing spaceships like coming and going. You see like a couple of park spaceships, including Kylo Ren's ship, and of course there's a Millennium Falcon out front. But you never actually see anything like taking off or leaving. I wish Disney had found a way to like give that impression. You know, whether like some kind of screen-based technology or having like drones or something where you see them taking off and landing. You know.
Yeah, they did the drone for the opening. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, the X-Wings,
yeah, they had the X-Wings, yeah. It would have been really cool if they did have something like that, but I'm assuming budget and time would have been against them.
Right. But, on the other hand, you do actually get to pilot one of these vehicles, of course being the Millennium Falcon. So let's go ahead and launch into talking about talking about the main attractions. And let's start off with Smugglers Run. This is the one that opened up first, and you already kind of tipped your hand as to what you thought of it. So let's go ahead and start off with your general impressions of Smugglers Run. I've heard impressions being all over the place on this attraction, where basically, just to give a quick recap, actually, the whole idea is you're taking this vehicle with a team of 6, and you have 2 pilots, one of which can steer vertically, the other horizontally. You have 2 gunners who can shoot laser blasts, basically, and you have 2 engineers who just basically press buttons at various points to keep the ship active, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, it's kind of like a communal activity, which is kind of neat, and it is interactive, which is something we don't see a whole lot when it comes to Disney attractions, or really any kind of theme park attraction. So what's your general take on this ride?
So I feel like it's very based upon which role you get assigned as to how much you enjoy it. When we rode it, we did actually ride it together, even though we did single rider, but we were both engineers. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we had a young child as one of the pilots.
Oh no!
And
I had that too.
Yeah. So what happens is, obviously, because it is pretty much like a big video game, which, you know, sounds awesome and cool. If your pilot is not staying on course, shall we say, you pretty much spend the whole time just crashing into walls and things, and no matter what other role you have, be it gunner or engineer, you can't really do anything when it says, like, torpedo the back of something, and you're trying to do it, and it's one side of the screen, and then you're facing the other side.
Right, you're not lined up with it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I'll hit the button, but it's not doing anything, but sure. So, yeah, I feel like if you're doing this attraction, definitely insist on being a pilot. I feel like you'd have a blast. Or in a group of 6 friends, I feel like it would be really, really cool and really fun. But if you're doing it, you know, single rider, and you get an engineer and you do have the wrong person piloting for what you're doing, then I feel like it's going to be quite disappointing. And honestly, we were kind of let down with it. It feels like the next iteration of like Mission Space over in Epcot, where you're pressing buttons on, and you know, things are happening, but this is obviously all real time and it's not pre-recorded, so that brings its own like issues. It's not set on a path, so
right.
I don't know how your experiences were. Did you ride it more than once, or did you do it just the once?
Yeah, I did it, I believe I did it 3 times, because I tried every position. So I did it twice single rider, and doing a single rider, you'll almost basically never get pilot. So the thing with single rider is, you can't request a position there either, so if you want to be a pilot, make sure you go through the main line. So a single rider, I got engineer and gunner, and then when I actually stood in the main line, or went through the main line, I requested pilot, and I handled the one that controlled the vertical movement. So I got to try all 3, and I think my least favorite position actually might have been gunner. I think that might be my first time with the ride, and it just felt like I felt like I was just mashing buttons. Because you have 3 buttons, and they control, I think, the height at which you shoot the laser, but you don't have any control otherwise. Like it's just like the slight height of the laser beam, and then how many you shoot by tapping the button, and that's it. So I was just matching them the entire time, and it just didn't feel like that engaging or fun. So I actually preferred, of course, pilot. Pilot is my favorite. It's just fun, like, to control the Millennium Falcon, but also engineer, because engineer almost has a least purposeful role, and I kind of like that, because you can enjoy it as more of just a ride. And during that particular ride, our driver, or our pilot, one of the pilots, was a child, and they were terrible. But I actually kind of enjoyed it, because it actually felt like more of a ride, because like the whole cockpit like just shakes violently when you're like running into mountains and stuff. I kind of love that, because the first time the pilot was actually pretty competent, and it didn't feel like much of an attraction. Like we're gently like swaying as we're competently flying through space. So I actually kind of enjoyed just ramming into everything and just like taking in the sights. And especially because at the end you get the little wrap up from I forget his name. Do you remember the guy's name who handles his operation?
I can't. It's
okay. Yeah,
it escapes me right now.
But yeah, the guy who runs the operation, like the alien guy, he gives like the rundown. He's like, you lost like your power supply. That's not good. It's like, oh, life support's gone too, huh? That's not great either. So overall, I think the most impressive part about the ride is the fact that it makes it look like you are piloting the Millennium Falcon. Like when you enter the cockpit, like it looks like the actual cockpit for the most part. And when you're sitting down in the pilot seat, or in the pilot seat, that's the most immersive feeling moment, because even though the screen isn't 3D, it feels like it, because like this screen like envelops your vision, and at least if you're the pilot, and it just feels really immersive, and I did like that. So yeah, I don't know. On the whole, though, it's hard to say. It's a fun ride, but I definitely wouldn't recommend waiting like more than an hour for it, if even that.
Yeah, I agree, and I would obviously strongly recommend picking the pilot position if possible if you're in the main line, just because I feel like you said it would be the most immersive and the most engaging position to be in.
Right. I do think one thing that could have improved is putting the controls for the other people besides pilots like in front, like maybe on the seat in front of them. Because one downside of being engineer is you do have to look to the side of points to see what buttons to press, and when you're doing that, you're not looking. You have no idea what's happening, in front of you. Like you don't know what's going on.
That's literally how it was for me. I was just bouncing around in my chair. We were crashing into things, looking on the side to see if my button was lighting up if I needed to press anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's not terribly engaging when that happens. So yeah, I wish they had found a way to make that work a little bit better. But again, pilot's where it's at. So if you can get pilot, definitely try and do that.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and move on to what I think everyone agrees is a main attraction, being Rise of the Resistance. So this ride is kind of crazy to me, and I'm very curious to see how you feel. And for the most part, everyone seems blown away by this attraction, and I think it's easy to see why. Because, like, on the whole, this ride takes like cues to the next level, like where they almost make the queue part of the experience. In fact, I think they do. Like the ride itself isn't just the attraction; it's a whole presentation of this. And I don't want to get too much into specifics yet, because I don't want to spoil it. But the way that they explain, how you end up in space and how the cast members play a role in that is just sublime. Like that is perhaps my favorite part of the attraction is the whole package, like how they fully immerse you in this story and making it feel like in explaining how you become prisoners as part of the First Order.
It is phenomenal. The way that they deal with everything, like you said, from entering the queue line to getting off the attraction, is almost completely flawless. The cast members that play the parts play them perfectly. I really hope that continues throughout the life of the attraction, because they are so good. Everything from the minute you enter that line through the minute you get off the vehicle is, in my opinion, like phenomenally done.
Mm-hmm. What's really cool about it too is the whole idea of Galaxy's Edge is that you have the First Order. I think the First Order basically has control of the city, but there's also a resistance base there as well. And so the whole idea is like the resistance base is kind of hidden. And what's hilarious is, because when we went the first time, we weren't able to ride the ride yet, because you have to get a boarding group, and ours wasn't up until like 7 p.m. So we were just exploring the land, and we were both like, or me and my friend group were like, where in the heck is that ride? Like we had no idea where it actually was. Now the fun. So I mean that actually like adds to the story of like, hey, this is actually kind of a well-hidden base, and kind of explains why the First Order, which is like literally like 30 feet away, can't find it. But what is funny is like once we figure out where the ride is, it's like super obvious at that point. But I thought it was funny. Like we had no idea where it was at first.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, because when the land first opened and that ride wasn't open, and obviously it's been like that in Disneyland for a while. You're right, you don't really notice it if you walk in and you walk straight past it and you don't realize that there's a giant attraction back there.
Yeah, because you're walking through what's basically like a forest, like a forest section just outside of the marketplace. And it's really well hidden. Like it really kind of feels like off the beaten path, and that's such a cool thing that they accomplished with what's one of the biggest rides in Disney history.
I know, right?
I don't know how much more we can talk about this in generic terms without getting into spoilers, so maybe we should just get into it, huh?
Sure.
Alright, so if you want to avoid spoilers for this attraction, which I highly recommend if you have any plans of visiting this ride at all, go ahead and skip ahead to the timestamp on the screen. That's when we'll be done talking about the attraction, at least in spoiler terms. Otherwise, buckle in, because we're going to get into it. So, I want to talk a little bit more before we get into the actual ride itself, like the actual process for the ride, because I really do love this. Like how you enter the Resistance base and you're going through all these corridors and like you're seeing like what basically are props from the movie. You even see like Finn's weird medical suit from The Last Jedi, like hung up in one of the lockers at some point. And then you get to what was effectively the first real pre-show scene, which is where you see BB-8 rolling around above, which is a super impressive looking animatronic. Like he's actually rolling around, his head moves independently of his body movement, and then of course you have the reveal of Rey, who pops up in holographic form, and we've seen uses of similar use of this technology before. I mean, probably in multiple ways, depending on how you look at it. Like, you know, there's the Pepper's Ghost effect, of course, at Haunted Mansion. Tower of Terror has like the projection of the window breaking, and of course, I would say most recently we've seen Harry Potter. All the Harry Potter attractions basically use this effect throughout the queues. Like, they almost overuse it. It's everywhere. But I don't think any of them are as effective as it is here, because if you don't know how they're pulling off the effect, it is super impressive. Like, I mean, it looks like a hologram. It's really well done.
No, it really does. It looks like straight out of the movie. And that's something that I think that they've done amazingly well throughout the whole of the Rise of the Resistance attraction. Every effect that they've done, it's maybe stuff that they've done before, or taken and adapted from things that they've done before, but in my opinion they've done it the best out of any time they've ever done it, which is what makes this attraction so cool. I don't know if you've seen the docuseries on Disney Plus, The Imagineering story.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So if you've seen that, you know, you see them work behind the scenes, and you know, in the field of work that I'm in, I'm really interested in, you know, how they do things, and that's kind of what I do on a daily basis. Like, how do I figure out how to do this, and that creative process. And yeah, they've done a fantastic job, especially, you know, like you said, with that hologram, the best that I've ever seen it done. And I feel like that theme continues throughout the whole attraction.
It really does, yeah. As you were saying, like, this kind of feels like I guess like the natural evolution of the dark ride. Like, it takes what Disney's learned over its 60, 70 year history of theme park attractions. I forget how old Disneyland is now. It's quite old. And like, it just basically takes everything they know and puts it into one attraction, and it's just amazingly effective at how they immerse you within the ride. So that continues with the next pre-show scene, where you learn that basically you have to escape this base. Like, I think if I recall correctly, like, the base's location has been discovered. You have to get out of there, and then you exit outside, and then you re-enter, and then you board what appears to be like a just some kind of like spaceship to get you into space, like a passenger vehicle. And then so once you're on board this thing, it actually, like, you feel it lifting off into space, and you're trying to escape. Like, you see yourself leaving what's Galaxy's Edge and taking off, and to the point where the time of day is even changes or even reflects the actual time of day that you boarded it, which is super cool. And then once so this is almost like a ride within a ride, because you feel the whole like room shaking and like, you know, shifting, you know, and it feels like you're, you know, taking off into space, and then eventually you get captured by the First Order. You get caught in like a tractor beam as you're pulled aboard a Death Star. And that's when the doors open. And these are the same doors you boarded through, by the way. So this might be the most impressive part of the ride. The same doors you came through open up, and you immediately see 50 stormtroopers like just staring at you, like with their guns pointed at you, as you enter this massive hangar where you can see out into space, as you see like different like spacecraft flying around, as you're herded into the prison part of the ride. And that is amazing. Like, what was your first impression of the whole sequence?
Well, going from the hologram room where they let you outside, it's a trip when, you know, all of a sudden the doors open and the cast members are just like, quick, run to the escape ship. And so you're out there. Yeah, you're out there, you're running, you're like, hey, I guess I'm gonna run, even though you're not meant to run in a theme park. But yeah, you're back outside, and then there's a ship with BB-8 on it there, and then you're waiting, and then all of a sudden the doors open, and then you're in this kind of like mini Star Tours-esque simulator, right. And you're like, what is happening? And then, you know, you're done with that, and then the doors open, and you're greeted with a First Order guard there pulling you out of there, and you're in this, like you said, giant hangar with all these stormtroopers everywhere, and that is honestly the most jaw-dropping moment I've probably ever experienced in a theme park. Like, that is my favorite part of this whole attraction.
Yeah. I think if it's not my favorite, it's my second favorite. I'll get to my favorite in just a moment. But yeah, I agree. It is jaw-dropping how they pull off that effect. Like, it reminded me a little bit, actually, of did you go to Disney World back in the early 90s? Like, late 80s, early 90s? When they had the original version of The Living Seas?
I was so young when I went the first time, I don't remember.
I'm dating myself here. So they used to have these things called hydravators, where it made it feel like you were taking an elevator deep undersea. So you would like see water rushing past the windows, you saw bubbles going up, and the whole like room shook. It's actually a little bit like how the new Harry Potter Gringotts attraction works, where they have the elevator too, which is a little bit like that. So this reminded me like of an extreme version of all that, where yeah, it really feels like you're taking off, the whole room shifting, and then as you said, or as we were touching on, you enter the Star Destroyer, and it's just mind blowing how they pull off that effect. It is so well done. I love everything about that. But what might be my favorite part of the attraction, if not that, is what happens next. Is because when you enter the actual prison portion, you then get sorted into groups, and the cast members here are amazing. Yes. Because they act like actual prison guards. Like, they aren't happy. Like, this is very anti-Disney. Like, they don't smile. They aren't happy. And I had some amazing interactions with them, because I think you were the one who recommended me try and get the blue group, like, because that's a front row, I guess.
Yeah.
So we had already been sorted. I'm like, hey, can we get the blue group? And he's like, are you serious? Like, are you like? I can't remember what he said, but it was like a 3-minute interaction. My friends were losing it at this guy just berating me, asking for preferable treatment in a prison cell. I did get what I wanted eventually, but it was amazing, and that's such a memorable moment to me, is how these guys are completely in character. It's a little bit similar to the Haunted Mansion or Tower of Terror, but taken to the extreme. These guys are having a great time, living up to the, bringing these characters to life. And I mean, that actually might be the best part of the attraction. I think it's just them selling the idea that you are prisoners and you're scum. Like, they basically call you scum throughout the ride. It's so good.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to earlier when I said the cast members were fantastic, and they really are. They play the role so well, and I hope that this continues throughout the life of the attraction.
Right. It's essential.
Because you, I had a moment with one of them as well, where they just decided to question me. Where's the rebel base? And I just pointed behind her, and she just gave me the filthiest look ever, and was just like, "Do you think you're funny?" And then someone else next to me started laughing, and I was like, "Well, she thinks I'm funny." And it's just funny. They're brilliant, and I hope it continues. And I agree that was right up there with one of my favorite things of the ride, because it's so unique every time, depending on the cast member you get and the mood that they're in, and it's brilliant.
So after that, you get herded into the prison cell, and this is such a unique thing too, because you had already been sorted into groups based on color, but then you're pushed into another room where typically you'd be lined up you'd be lined up according to your color, but it feels like it's like anything goes in this room. Like, you're just in a small prison cell as you're waiting for what happens, and then eventually you see Kylo Ren, or you see some stormtroopers and Kylo Ren enter a balcony above you, as they basically talk about the prisoners and how they're going to come back and interrogate you later, I believe. And you're like, man, how do we even get out of here? And then it's at that point where you see someone cutting a hole through a wall. Like, you hear a beam cutting a hole through a wall next to you as a wall portion gets removed, and that's when you actually board the ride itself. And this whole sequence, again, is just fantastically done. It really does contribute to the idea of, you are a prisoner on this ride, and how am I going to get out of here?
I know, the first time we got on there, everyone's in that room, and, the screen portion ends with the stormtroopers and Kylo Ren going away, and then you're all just left there standing, and you're, looking around at, where's this door coming from? Because we have to get out of here somehow. Yeah. And, you can't see it. You're looking around, and no one can tell, where you're going to be getting out from. And like you said, all of a sudden, this effect, before you know it, cuts a hole in the wall. And, again, brilliantly well done. And, the first time that you see this, and I feel like that's a theme throughout this attraction, the first time you experience it, it's the most mind-blowing, visually pleasing thing you'll ever experience.
That's why it's absolutely best to avoid spoilers if you can, so apologies to anyone who's still listening to this who hasn't experienced it, because it's still going to be impressive, but it's amazing the first time not knowing fully what's going on. So yeah, this is where we enter the actual ride portion of the ride. And I don't think we need to go through the whole thing point by point. We can just talk about our general, or I mean, we'll get into some specifics, but we're not gonna give like a full rundown on it. But the whole idea is basically you board these somewhat autonomous vehicles, like this little like R2 unit or whatever the first order's version is, R9, yeah.
Yeah.
This little robot steering this trackless vehicle. So that's one of the cool things about this ride, is this is the first use of trackless technology in the States, or at Disney parks specifically in the States, where there's no track. Like, you can't really see or tell where your vehicle's going to go. It can spin around freely, it's not tied to a track, and that adds to the immersion. Like, it feels like you're racing out of this base to try and get out of here, as you're dodging, Kylo Ren encounters, laser blasts from stormtroopers, and even AT-ATs, which might be one of the most impressive parts. Like, you just enter this hangar, and you see these massive AT-ATs in front of you, as, for whatever reason, this robot thinks it's a good idea to take a lift directly up in front of it, so it can target you with its lasers. And yeah, you're just seeing like laser blasts like shoot through the environment. They leave holes in the walls, like leaving exposed like circuitry, and like there's some really cool stuff going on here. So what was your overall impression of the ride portion itself? Like, what did you think of it on the whole?
I mean, I loved it. The ride itself is very similar to, like you said, like the trackless ride system is very similar to Ratatouille.
Right.
I've been to Disneyland Paris, so I've ridden that, and
that's
again,
coming Epcot too. Yeah,
it is. It is. The use of it, again, is the best that I've seen it used for, the trackless ride vehicle. Done everything superb. The effects, fantastic. Again, the first time you're on there and you're not sure what is happening, and all these things are happening around you, it looks like there's holes appearing in the wall, and they're smoldering from the laser blasts, and there's lasers flying everywhere, and like you said, the AT-AT, that moment is brilliantly well done. And interestingly, the second time we rode it, our vehicle took another path to the side, and we didn't actually go up right in front of the AT-AT, which was interesting that there's different paths for them to take as well, so it can be slightly different each time that you ride it.
Oh, I'm jealous, but I got the same path all 3 times I rode it. So.
Oh, no. I think the path that you took was probably my favorite, because you're right in front of the AT-AT, and the lasers are pointing right at you. The other one, you're kind of on the side of it. And I think it's a stormtrooper that takes a shot at you with like this giant rifle. I may be wrong, don't quote me on this, but yeah, it's a similar kind of thing, but not exactly the same. But yeah, they've done a fantastic job with this, right? All the effects, like I've said multiple times, are just done phenomenally well. And again, every time, the first time that you ride it is definitely the best, because you don't know what's happening, and everything looks 100% perfect. And one of my favorite parts on the ride was when Kylo Ren starts chasing you down, and then all of a sudden this lightsaber appears from the ceiling, cutting a hole through, like he's trying to get to you. That was brilliant.
Yeah, that's such a well done effect. Like, I still don't know how they pulled it off. Like, where you see a lightsaber like just come in through the ceiling, a little bit like it reminded me of Terminator 2 when when the T-1000 is on the ceiling, and then he's cutting a hole into the ceiling. I'm like, how in the heck are they pulling it off? It's so well done. Also too, what else is neat about this ride is how it's like a combination of multiple, like, it's basically multiple different rides in one, because the way they explain, again, huge spoilers here, so tune out if you don't want spoilers, but the way they explain how you get back to the planet and escape is so awesome. So basically, you have the final encounter with Kylo Ren. I think it's an X-wing that shoots a hole through the wall, which basically distracts Kylo Ren, because like it creates a vacuum, and it starts and it just causes the ceiling to cave in on him. That's when you board an escape pod, and then you actually feel this thing drop. It drops away from the Death Star, and you're actually dropping in real life, and that caught me by huge surprise. I did not see that coming. And then it's actually it's like a quick version of Star Tours at this point, where or Smugglers Run even, where you're basically piloting down back to Galaxy's Edge. And that's such a neat way to wrap up the ride, I think, to kind of like explain how you get back to back to Galaxy's Edge. It's just like a fully immersive experience.
Yeah, they thought of like absolutely everything. As you said, the drop. It's not a big drop, so anyone who's a little bit wary about drops, I wouldn't be too worried about it. It's explained perfectly, and then it just drops you like right into a simulator, like you're back on Star Tours, and you know, it kind of drops, and then you feel the simulator like kick you out as you like accelerate away, and it's done so well. I keep being very complimentary about this ride, but it's everything that they've done, in my opinion, is like top level. They really did such a great job.
I mean, I think it's probably one of my overall favorite experiences at any park, just in how they set up everything and explain everything. I absolutely adored it. However, I will say though, when it comes to the actual ride portion itself, I might be one of the few who's maybe a little bit disappointed. If we count just the ride itself.
I understand that, and the more you ride it, the more you feel like that. I've only ridden it twice, but definitely the second time around, it was a little bit more disappointing. The first time you get off it, you're like, oh my god, that is the best thing ever. I'll never do anything as good as this. And then you get back on it the second time, and it is a bit more of a letdown. You're like, did I really think that about it? I feel like it's just because if you take each individual portion of the ride, they've done it so well, and I don't see how you could do it any better. However, when it comes to like the fun factor of it and maybe the thrill factor, that's kind of what's missing. And if you are someone who really enjoys thrills, and although like visually it's thrilling and very fulfilling, just it doesn't quite give you the same adrenaline rush once you know what's happening and once you know what to expect as, say, for example, a Flight of Passage or a roller coaster, as we're probably going to get into with Hagrid's.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit on it. I think it is. Yeah, I think there is a little bit lack of a thrill or fun factor. Which, I mean, again, the whole idea is you're a prisoner, so I get why it's not fun in the same way that, say, the original Star Tours was. But yeah, there was just something that left me just a little bit lacking, and I think it was just kind of like I felt like it fell just a little bit short of the thrill I was maybe hoping for. I don't know, it's hard to describe because, as you said, like everything individually like works great. But I think it might partially come down to the climax. Again, I love the whole drop sequence, but I think the scene immediately leading up to it with Kylo Ren, maybe that part. I mean, I'm kind of like getting a little bit nitpicky here, but that scene I think didn't quite work for me. Like the animatronic is impressive, but it's also weird. And
I agree.
Yeah, because he does, like, I think a lot of people already said, like, he looks a little bit like Elsa from the Frozen ride. Like it looks like it's the same kind of like skeleton structure, but also like then the ceiling caves in and not quite in a completely convincing way. I don't know.
I had the exact same thought. My favorite animatronic that Disney have ever done, or I think any park has ever done, is the shaman in Na'vi River Journey.
That's amazing, right?
That thing looks incredible. Like, you couldn't tell if someone was actually inside there. Whereas the first Kylo Ren animatronic that you come across looks great, but this guy, as you said, with the whole frozen Elsa arms, it's a little bit too much for his character from the movies. He doesn't move that way, so I felt a more convincing movement for him would have been better. But we're nitpicking here.
Exactly. and I think, so I mean, on the whole, like, it is a very impressive ride, super impressive, and I think I am in the minority here of ones who maybe not been thoroughly impressed. But I think, or at least in terms of like thrills, rather, let me put it in just a little bit disappointed, I should say. But I think that is for partially one reason, as you kind of touched on, because just a couple of days before, or maybe even just the day before, I can't remember, I had also experienced another relatively new ride in Orlando, being Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure over at Universal Studios. It opened, I think, 8 months ago or so, sometime early-ish in 2019. And I have to say, this might be one of my favorite rides I've ever been on. I mean, at the very least, it's probably my favorite coaster now. But this ride, I thought, was just freaking brilliant. Like, the theming, the thrills, the fun of it all. I had such a fun time on this ride, and it does things I had never expected in a coaster. Like, it does things I didn't know you could do in a coaster. We'll avoid too many spoilers for now. Like, I'll give a warning for that as well. But I believe you just went on this yourself a few days ago, right? So what did you think of it? What was your impression?
Yeah, we went on Monday. Luckily, it was only a 45-minute wait, which I'm sure would be...
That's so much better than mine. 45 minutes? I was in line for like an hour and a half to 2 hours each time. Not fair.
Yeah, luckily all the holiday crowds have dispersed, and I've noticed it's been like under 90 minutes this whole week, pretty much. So yeah, we were very lucky. 45-minute wait. I think it may have gone down very slightly for a little bit as we got stuck in the queue. So it took us maybe about 50 minutes total, but yeah, it was, as you've said, fantastic. Probably the most fun ride I've been on in a long time. Definitely up there with my favorite coasters, for sure. It's just a really, really great time.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's just so fun.
Because what I mean, especially coming from Universal, because they have a tendency not to really theme their coasters, which really bugs me. Like, I love the Hulk, don't get me wrong. And I also did, what was that, Rip Ride Rocket or whatever,
yes.
This time, which I thought was okay. But the Hulk is one of my favorite, I do really enjoy the Hulk, but I always feel like they would be better if they fully themed those attractions, which or even Dueling Dragons before this wasn't themed either. But they fully fleshed out this Harry Potter attraction. Like, it's a fully themed coaster. To the point where you're not just in a coaster, you're literally riding either on a motorbike or a sidecar, and I love that! Like, that is such a cool detail, and it's not just a detail, like, it actually enhances a ride. So I went for the motorbike all 3 times I rode on it. Is that what you got to?
I got the bike, yeah.
Okay.
Haley took the sidecar. But yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the bike is definitely the way to go. We actually went with some friends who had ridden it twice before, and they both agreed that the bike was the more fun of the 2 ride vehicles, because it's a 2-seater attraction. So you're either, if you're in the same row as someone, you're either on the bike or the sidecar. There's no switching around. So I would definitely recommend, if you're planning to ride this attraction, to get on the bike, because it really does feel like you're riding a motorbike, and you're doing 50 miles an hour like around these bends, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, I actually rode a motorcycle. I just sold it last year, but I've had a motorcycle for most of my adult life, and this is the most convincing motorcycle-like experience I've had, short of actually riding a motorcycle. Because it really does feel like you're riding one. Like, you're in the riding position, you can actually grab the handlebars. It feels so good. And I'm actually, like, I'm almost a little bit worried. Well, I shouldn't be worried, but I'm a little bit concerned now, like, how Disney's new Tron ride is going to hold up, which is opening up at Magic Kingdom, which is apparently a very good ride based on the Shanghai impressions, but it's a similar idea where you're riding a motorbike. I'm like, man, how can they compete now with Hagrid, which is such a great ride? So I guess let's go ahead and get into the spoiler section here. So again, if you want to avoid specific spoilers, including what exactly is happening in the ride in both a story sense and also like a ride sense, go ahead and skip ahead to the time on the screen right now. Otherwise, we are going to ruin this for you. So part of what makes... So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that make this ride work. But let's go and start at the beginning, and that's the whole setup for the ride, where you're going through this really elaborate queue, part of which I think is straight up from what it used to be, being Dueling Dragons, and it works perfect here. But then they add, there's at least a show scene, which, by the way, I didn't see the show scene the first 2 times, but on the 3rd time, they actually heard this through the room, like, oh, I didn't even know the show scene existed, what? But I guess the ride is so good, I didn't feel like I needed it. Like, the whole idea is, like, you're a student learning how to ride a motorbike, and I'm like, that's all I need, I guess. But it was nice having the little show scene there. But my favorite part of the queue is when you get to the final room, right before the actual boarding sequence, where you have, like, this, it looks like you're underneath, like a wooden bridge, almost, that's above you, and you can see, like, motorcycles riding around overhead, and it's so loud, and it just really adds to the immersion. Like, it feels like you just dropped in, like, some weird Harry Potter Harley gang or something.
Okay, so I had an issue with that room, only because I've been scarred for life. We went to ride Kong when it opened, and it was in previews. And have you ridden Kong?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so you know the room with the witch woman who's chanting, and then it starts, going Kong, Kong, Kong really loudly? A
little bit. I took I had the Fast Pass line or whatever,
okay.
So I only saw a little bit of that.
Okay, so yeah, we got stuck in there for like 2 hours.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And since that point, I've been so anti-Universal using these obnoxiously loud rooms, just because if you get stuck in them, they don't stop the effects, and it drives you nuts. So I like the effect that they did. I just wish they would turn the volume down. Just
to their credit, I totally get that. I got stuck in that room and they actually did turn it off.
Oh,
so
wow.
they still had the projections or whatever, however they did the effects overhead, but there was no sound at all.
Okay, fine. I take it back. I apologize, Universal. Please forgive me.
They've learned. So yeah, I really enjoy the setup, but it's not nearly on the same level, of course, as Rise of Resistance when it comes to like immersing you. Or I mean, it is to what it needs to be, but it's not at the next level that Rise of Resistance is. However, when it comes to the ride itself, my god, this ride is amazing because it has multiple launches, more than I think any other ride. To the point where there's one point where you go up what looks like almost like a 90-degree straight up embankment, and then you shoot backwards too. So I've done rides where you go up and you come back down. Even Everest over at Animal Kingdom has something similar where you go up and then you eventually go back. But this one, it launches you back. I did not expect that. It feels intense. And the whole ride just has a level of intensity to it where it feels like you are like just banking around these corners, like in a manner more aggressive than I've really felt from a roller coaster. It still feels smooth though, like it never feels rough, but it feels intense. And this is a coaster that doesn't even have any like loops or inversions, and it doesn't need it. Like it just feels so. It's just so fun.
Yeah, no, that was my impression of it as well. It's probably the most fun coaster I've ever been on. Without the loops and inversions, and it's not too intense where someone who sees a loop or an inversion and it's just like, I'm never doing that. Like, you can get them on this. It's kind of it's somewhat family friendly. You could have younger kids going on this as long as they're past the height requirement, and it's just so fun. It's so fun. It's so well done. You've got the animatronics and the props all the way around as well to give you something to look at on the slower portions. The animatronics and props maybe not quite as impressive visually as some of the ones you'll see at some of the bigger Disney rides, but they do the job perfectly fine. They keep you immersed in the attraction. They keep you in the world that you're in, and you're only there for a few seconds anyway, and then you're shooting straight back off down the track. And they've done such a great job with this ride. Definitely the most fun coaster in Orlando.
Yeah, it's by far, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I was going to say it's by far Universal's best coaster, but I think I agree with you. I think this is the best coaster, period. It is just such a fun, like, it really feels like, it feels like if Disney, like, this is a Disney caliber coaster, and that's the best compliment I can give. I mean, and not just that, like, they exceeded what Disney's done. So, like, how they tell the story through it, how you see these, animatronic creatures, and just like the new things they pull off during the coaster itself. Because there's that other sequence that we haven't mentioned yet, where you get snared in the what's that called? Do you remember? You get caught up like some bramble or some plant thing, and that's when like the entire coaster just drops. It's like a little mini Tower of Terror. I'm like, holy crap! How did they? Like, I didn't even know that was like possible on a roller coaster attraction. And then you of course just shoot off immediately after. So did you know about that going in, or did that catch you by surprise?
I did know about the drop. I must admit I knew about the drop because it came out a while ago before I rode it, and speaking to some friends that have ridden it before, it gets brought up. So I knew about the drop and I knew where to expect it. But it's still very, very well done, very impressive that the fact that they can get a coaster and its track to just drop like that and then shoot straight off afterwards. It's
right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. There is no downtime on this ride. Like, it makes Everest look like a slowpoke by comparison.
Exactly.
And that's another coaster I really do enjoy. Like, I rode it after, had a great time, but after Hagrid, though, I have to say, it is looking a little bit dated now. So yeah, man, this ride is so fun. It's just so thrilling, and it's not just thrilling because it's a coaster. Like, I've seen some people throw that out there, like, it's a coaster, of course it's gonna be thrilling. I'm like, yeah, but there's been plenty. I've been on tons of other coasters that are thrilling, but none reach the level of this. And it has to do like with the theming and the immersion and the fact that like you are like low to the ground. So it feels even faster, I think, than you're going, and it feels like you are twisting and turning around these corners on a motorbike. And to that point too, there was something else I was gonna say that I just totally lost it. I have no idea what it is now, but I'm sure it'll come back to me. But yeah, it's just such a fun ride that just works so well with the theming and the story and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I will say about this ride is the whole time, from the minute it shoots straight off from the loading platform to when you arrive back, and you pass the unicorn on the way like back into the station. I just had this giant grin on my face, and I just couldn't stop.
I have not. Yeah, I have not had that since, well, I say that as if for a long time ago, but I would say the closest experience, or the only other experience comparable recently I can think of, would be Flight of Passage for me. That's another ride that just kind of blew me away when I was on it, where I had to smile the entire time, and this is probably the closest I've had to that since then, so...
Yeah, if anything, it was more so for me, because it's just so much fun. Like, Flight of Passage is, again, visually beautiful and, very different from anything that we've previously done before, despite it being kind of similar to, like, people say, like, it's similar to Soarin' and just another simulator, but Flight of Passage is very different, and again, this is very different from just a normal coaster.
It is.
And I just couldn't stop grinning like an idiot the whole time. It was so much fun.
It's so fun. Did you go on it during the day or at night, if you recall?
We went on during the day.
Oh man, so during the day it's still great. At night though, it is amazing. My first ride at night, I mean, it's amazing no matter what. But I think I'm a fan of going on coasters at night typically, and I think it even enhances Hagrid even farther. So yeah, if you can, try and go on it at night, because it makes it even better, I think, so...
Yeah, that'll be the next trip. I've been wanting to go back and ride it ever since Monday. I'm just gagging to find the time to go.
Yeah, I think now that Hagrid's open, like every time I go to Orlando now, I'm gonna have to stop at Universal Studios because it's so good. I think for me, it's by far the best Harry Potter attraction they have. It's the one, like all the others, are kind of mixed feelings on to some degree. Besides Butterbeer, that might be the otherwise best attraction. But this ride is brilliant in every way. But what's your take on it, on how it adds to Harry Potter?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm not a Harry Potter fan at all. It's definitely not something that interests me pretty much whatsoever, but this ride is fantastic, and right up there with Flight of Passage is my favorite in Orlando. And we just renewed our Universal Orlando annual passes, and they're going to be getting a lot more use than they have previously just because of this attraction. It's that good.
It really is.
I was blown away. I was not expecting it to be so good, but yeah, it's definitely the hype that there was for it. I feel like it's kind of died down, but I feel like it should be right back up there because it's so good.
Yep, I totally agree. I feel like it almost like completely negates the whole Gringotts attraction. You've done that one, I take it?
Yes, Gringotts I liked. It was a good ride, but yeah, this is definitely the best Harry Potter attraction by far.
Yeah, I'm glad I did Gringotts, however you say it, Gringotts first, because I don't know how it would have felt had they done it after going on Hagrid. Because even my first time in Gringotts, I thought it was okay. I thought it was a little bit too stop and go. Like, it never felt, like, beyond the initial start of the ride, it never felt like much of a coaster. It felt more like a dark ride.
Yes.
Which maybe is what they're going for, but it didn't have the thrills I was looking for, which Hagrid's completely delivers on. So... yeah, so if you're in Orlando, definitely stop by Hagrid's or Harry Potter Land in general. Because the lands themselves are very well done. Regardless of the rides themselves, Hagrid's aside, like the lands are super well themed and definitely worth checking out. So, well, do you have any final thoughts on anything we've discussed so far before we move on to Super Nintendo World, or?
My only thought is that it kind of links into Super Nintendo World, because I've always been a much bigger Disney fan than I have Universal fan when it comes to the parks. I feel like Disney always, well, not always, but most of the time hit their mark with attractions.
Right.
And I was really worried when, it did get announced a couple of years ago that Universal got Nintendo, basically, and they were going to be, bringing to life the lands. And honestly, with the introduction of Hagrid's, that's kind of put my mind at rest, honestly. Like, if they can do such a great job with this, and this is like the latest and biggest thing that they're putting out, like, I'm super excited to see what they're going to do with, Super Nintendo World. And obviously that trailer that they brought out was freaking amazing. It's got me so pumped for it, and yeah, I'm in a much better place mentally about them bringing Super Nintendo World to life. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Like, I would say Universal's overall handling of Harry Potter has been pretty much perfect. They've done a great job bringing that world to life, and I've always hoped that they would be able to deliver something for Nintendo or for Super Nintendo World. But there's some of the more recent attractions did give me a little bit of pause, like the because they've had like that Jimmy Fallon ride, which is just kind of whatever. They had King Kong, which I know had a mixed reception. I actually ended up liking it on my time here, but based on the mixed reception, I was a little bit hesitant. I'm like, man, I hope they can deliver with Super Nintendo World. But now after going on Hagrid, I'm like, yeah, Universal still got it. And based on what we've seen of Super Nintendo World and what we've heard, it really sounds like this is like the natural evolution of theme park worlds or lands, because it seems like they're leaning into a little bit what Disney's done with Galaxy's Edge, where they're trying to make it more interactive. In fact, it actually sounds like they made better what Galaxy's Edge did, because right now Galaxy's Edge's interaction is pretty much in the background, aside from Smugglers Run. But Mario Kart really kind of sounds like Smugglers Run on steroids, where, based on the rumors, it sounds like you will be able to collect items and shoot items at your opponents. So there's going to have that level of interaction combined with physical, actual movement through these physical sets, which is something that Universal's kind of strayed away from too much, except with Harry Potter. And that's why I'm so excited. If they can nail Harry Potter to the degree they have and deliver an interactive experience beyond what even Disney's done with Star Wars, I am so stoked. I really can't wait. I've been avoiding the specifics of the rumors for Mario Kart, but I don't want to know the scene-by-scene breakdown how this is going to work, because I want to be surprised in the way that I was with Hagrid and Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I feel like the interactivity part of any ride is always going to be tricky. There's a balance between, just making it like a button masher kind of thing versus something with a degree of difficulty or time that you need to understand exactly how it works, but making it feel right. And that's what I felt was lacking with Smugglers Run, as I didn't feel like it had that learning curve that was generous enough for certain aspects of it. So I just hope...
there's almost no instructions.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, just press the button when it blinks. Okay, great. But then I have to watch the button the whole time and I don't see anything. And
exactly.
And same with the pilots, fine, you go left and right and up and down, but some kind of more help would have been great. Right. But yeah, I feel like if they can get that balanced right when it comes to the Mario Kart ride specifically, then... I feel like from what's been rumored, with it's the AR glasses as well, right? That they're talking about.
That's right. That's
it's very exciting, and as long as they get it right, and it feels right. That's the main thing, is the feeling of the ride. If the ride feels right, and you can't help but have that stupid grin on your face, then yeah, it's gonna work, and I'm super excited. Obviously, I doubt I'll get over to Japan to ride it this year, but I'm super excited to see when they bring everything and more to is it Universal's Epic Universe Park that they're talking about? Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So
you're getting Donkey Kong as well, which is nice, so beyond just the Mario Kart and Yoshi rides. But yeah, I think you pretty much touched on it, it's just going to be like a new type of attraction, I feel like, where... where so far there's been an imbalance between whether it's a ride or more of a video game. I guess Disney has the Toy Story Midway Mania, right? And it definitely feels more like a video game than it does a ride. Yeah. And then Smugglers Run, I'm not even quite sure how to classify that one. Whereas Mario Kart seems like it could be the perfect middle ground here, while rolling in all new technology too. With the AR goggles. We've not seen anything of that nature on our ride before, to my knowledge. So this could be something completely new.
Do we know... Sorry, I just interrupt you. Do we know if Nintendo's actually working with them to make the gameplay of that, feel right? Or has there nothing been said about that?
I'm confident they are. I mean, they haven't. I don't think they've given the exact breakdown, but we know that at the very least, Shigeru Miyamoto has been involved in this project.
Yeah, so that gives me a lot of hope.
That's exactly it. But I feel like some of the. I don't want to make it too broad, but some of my favorite attractions or some of the most impressive things we've seen have been from collaborations with other, with outside parties. Whether it was the original Star Tours, or Harry Potter Land. I'm sure there are other examples. I'm
Pandora, Flight of Passage.
Oh yeah, Pandora. There we go.
With James Cameron.
Yes, that was the main one. Pandora, exactly. These amazing set pieces because like you're bringing the brilliant minds like Imagineers or whoever Universal uses, plus an outside party who has a vested interest in making it as impressive as possible, and that just leads to like some truly magical creations. So having a Nintendo themed land in a theme park is something I've wanted for decades, and I never thought it would come to fruition.
Same.
So having Universal's best working with Nintendo's best has me so excited to see what exactly they deliver, especially with it's going beyond the rides here. Like when it comes to the land itself, as we learned recently, there's going to be some major interactive parts to it where you wear these wristbands that let you interact with the land, whether it's collecting coins by hitting question blocks, or even apparently engaging in boss battles with other people around you, which we don't even know how that's going to work. So that's what really excites me too, is how this might be the most lively land we've seen. Like they could actually bring it to life in a way that we haven't seen any other land quite achieve, where you're actually interacting with everything. Like it sounds a little bit like, as I said earlier, what they were aiming Galaxy's Edge to be originally, but they kind of stepped back away from. This could be what Galaxy's Edge might have been in an earlier version.
Yeah, no, definitely, and the use of the wristbands to make things more interactive, and I think there's a smartphone connection to it as well.
Right.
It gives you something else to do, not only just in line, which Disney have been using with their Disney Parks Play app or whatever it's called. In lines you can go around and scan things, but it gives you something to do throughout the whole land, and sometimes you don't even have to wait 3 hours or 4 hours to get on an attraction when you can enjoy the land itself and feel like you've actually done something rather than just walk in, look around, and leave.
Right. Yeah.
That to me is like, it's exciting.
It is exciting, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm just really just curious to see how exactly it's going to work in a real setting. So obviously the trailer was played up as to how exactly it's going to be portrayed. But yeah, I am.
Wait, what? It's not going to look exactly like that with enemies flying everywhere and
miles and miles of Magic Kingdom. But I will say it did actually assuage some of my fears a little bit. But I wasn't ever fully sure on the layout based on like the early artwork and like models we've seen. But I don't know, that trailer actually kind of like helped like relieve some of my fears a little bit. It's like, okay, I think they get it here actually. They're going for a really lively experience based on that, if it's an indicator at all. And yeah, I'm just excited to see it come to fruition. And they're also doing other cool things too, like having what apparently are like AR like binoculars you can look through at set up around the land that will augment the actual real world of different characters that otherwise wouldn't appear.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's apparently like I think different like games you can engage with. Yeah, I'm just stoked to go there and see everything.
Yeah, I can't wait to see exactly how they realize everything and how it all works. And like I said, I can't wait until their new park opens in Orlando, because it's unlikely that I'm going to head over to Japan anytime soon. So they better get that building work underway pretty quick.
yeah, no kidding, God. That's still probably, 4 to 5 years away, potentially. So yeah. I guess you could come out to Hollywood if you want a little sneak preview of Super Nintendo World. I think I'll be opening up first there. It's already being built in Hollywood, so...
Huh, okay. I think they said 2023 is the date they're shooting for Epic Universe, so not too long. That's 3 years, so...
Well, if they hit early 2023. If it's late, that's basically 4 years, so... All right. Well, any final thoughts all about Super Nintendo World you want to get out there before we wrap it up, or anything else we've discussed?
Just super excited for Super Nintendo World. Like I said, Hagrid's really put my mind at rest as to what Universal can do. Like you said, the previous few attractions that they came out with, like the Fast and Furious one down here and Jimmy Fallon, weren't the best. So I'm stoked. It looks like they're giving it the same kind of treatment as they're giving Harry Potter, and that to me is very exciting.
That's exactly it. Like I'm almost I'm curious. Have you been on the Cars ride at California Adventure?
Yes, that thing is amazing.
Yeah, that's a great ride. So I wonder if this might almost be Universal's version of that, just taken to the next level, where you're power sliding around corners. You have the level of interaction, and what specifically reminded me of it is the fact that this is a race, just as it is in the Cars land. The difference is, in the Cars ride, it's random who wins. Like, you have no influence at all on it. Like, it's fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. It's fun to be racing your teammates, or your opponents, rather, but you have no say in it. Whereas here, it seems like you actually will. So I'm stoked to see how exactly that plays out.
Yeah, Radiator Springs Races is fantastic. One of my favorite rides out there, and the thought that they could make it even better than that ride, and it seems like they will be, and that's really exciting, especially being, Mario Kart, and I'm such a big Nintendo fan myself that, this is like the dream come true.
It really is. So that about wraps up for us here. So Ermis, can you tell us where people can find, where they can find you at, or specifically where they can find your stuff at to actually purchase?
Sure. I'm on Etsy, which is where I sell most of my things, and that's my name on Etsy is Casting Studio, so CASTINGSTUDIO, all one word. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and it's at Casting Studio with an underscore at the end. And you'll be able to see everything I can do and have available for purchase over there.
Perfect, and you can find links to all that in the description below. And of course, stay tuned to Game Explained for possibly more theme park discussions in the future. Let me know what you thought of this if you want to see more. We'll definitely have more on Super Nintendo World at some point. And of course, everything else Nintendo as well. We'll catch you later. Bye.